Were there any novels published in Nazi Germany protesting the slide into authoritarianism and into apocalypse, really? There was at least one, and that is Ernst Junger's On the Marble Cliffs, and that's what we're going to discuss today. Hey, it's Andrew with the Isle of Misfit books, where we discuss books that have struck me and stuck with me in my 25 years of working in rare books. And today we are going to be taking a look at Ernst Junger's masterpiece from 1939, On the Marble Cliffs. Now, Junger was a Nazi. He worked for the regime in Vichy France, in Paris, as a censor. He had served in the German army in World War I, had been wounded a number of times, was a war hero, and so he had enough authority within the regime, and even was known to Hitler, so that when this book was published and the Gestapo urged it to be suppressed immediately, or even before it was published, in the introduction, Jesse Stevens writes, "It was thanks to Hitler's admiration of Junger's earlier work that On the Marble Cliffs was published at all. When other party officials pushed for its immediate suppression, the Fuhrer reportedly replied, 'Leave Junger be.'" Junger, like I said, was multiply wounded in battle in World War I, was multiply decorated, Iron Cross winner. You know, he was a war hero, and that was enough for Hitler to say, even though it was pretty clear that the head forester, the sort of the villain of this book, was a stand-in for Hitler or for any sort of dictator, autocrat. His history, his personal record was enough, and the esteem that Hitler held him in was enough for Hitler to say, leave him be and allow this book to be published, at least until 1942, when it was officially censored by the Gestapo. It's set on the Mediterranean in sort of a timeless era almost. It's not, the names of countries are given, but they're not necessarily exactly in line with a map of the Mediterranean in 1939. It has a more symbolical, a more allegorical tone to it, a more mystical, fantastical tone to it. There are automobiles and rifles mentioned, shotguns, but that's kind of it as far as modern day technology. The rest of it really could almost be something out of a fantasy novel, sort of set in a Renaissance era or a medieval sort of era. It has that kind of vibe to it, again, with a few exceptions. And it's a beautiful book. It's a first-person narrative told by a brother, a monk, who only has one other brother at this particular monastery, Brother Otho, who is mentioned. And these two brothers, these two monks, they spend most of their time at the monastery, which is again on a very idyllic location on these marble cliffs overlooking the Mediterranean. And they spend most of their time making this catalog of local flora. That's their project, and one of them is more responsible for collecting the specimens and putting them into specimen binders, and the other is more responsible for actually cataloging them. And it's a very nice little job that they have going there. It's unclear what's paying for this. They have friends among the locals who are help cook for them and support them. They have this kind of idyllic life, a life of the mind really, but on the horizon, back from the cliffs, in the forest, there are rumors of the head forester, who is sort of this powerful, mysterious figure who is encouraging the bandits to kind of rally to his banner and make raids on the coast and on the farms. And so you have this conflict, this growing conflict, storm clouds brewing and smoke clouds rising as this danger comes ever closer. The monks are aware of it, but there's really not a whole lot that they seem interested in doing to try to stop it, largely because there's not a whole lot that they can do to stop it. And it is sort of a passive view of it, which makes sense given Junger's own position within this the German government, the Nazi government at this time, there was not, probably felt like there was not a whole lot that he could do, although he was at least brave enough to publish this novel, which is a pretty clearly a novel of protest. Like I said, the head forester is a stand-in for Hitler or for other autocratic figures that were rising at that time: Mussolini, Stalin, Franco. You had a lot of this in the world at that time. Ultimately, though, the encroaching forces of chaos and corruption and crime do get to the point where it pushes the brothers into action, and they both have a warrior past, so they're sort of like warrior monks, and they do set out to make a raid against the forces of the head forester, and that the battle scene is absolutely fantastic. They have these war dogs that they go with them, and their dogs meet the dogs of the head forester. It is just a fantastically rendered climax to the book. And the book itself is just wonderfully lush and poetic. It's appropriate for the narrator who is involved in sort of making this careful record of the beautiful flowers and plant life of the area. It's appropriate then that he should be so focused on like the birds. There are so many species of birds named here, and the way that the birds sound, and the snakes. There are these lovely poisonous snakes that are in the area as well. The book is his own catalog of this way of life in this moment, this idyllic moment, this beautiful area that is about to get destroyed. And he can see it coming, and he does fight against it, but is aware all the while that there is not a whole lot that one man or even two men can do. It would require much more to actually resist the forces of the head forester. And they go into that battle, I think, fully expecting to die. They do not die, and ultimately make their escape to Altiplana, to across the sea to another region of the world where presumably the head forester can't reach them, essentially surrendering where they used to live on the marble cliffs to the head forester and his forces. So ultimately, it's kind of a bleak narrative. There is an attempt at resistance, but we all know it's futile from the start. They just are outmanned and outgunned, outdogged. And this has been pointed out that, you know, it's very not the sort of heroic narrative that we're used to seeing now, where, you know, one man or one woman is capable, one protagonist is capable of altering the course of history and saving the world. Like, that's not really reality, certainly not in 1939, but I think just generally speaking, that's not really the way the world typically works. And so it seems to be encouraging almost a drawing within, an indrawing, and a concentration on, you know, trying to hold on to what is beautiful in the world for beauty's sake before it is all just destroyed. Kind of a bleak message, although them being able to escape perhaps is also a little unrealistic, given that they did try to make that armed resistance, and usually armed resistance to a totalitarian head forester and his, you know, criminal forces is not going to end well. And that was similar to Junger's own situation. You know, he did survive World War II. His son did not. His son was executed, likely, by the SS late in the war. But Junger lived to the ripe old age of 102, and always was, and he is, a right-wing figure. You know, like I said, a member of the Nazi Party. He was a censor for the Vichy, for the Nazi regime in France. Fought on the German side in World War I. Fought effectively on the German side in World War II as well. So, a right-wing figure, a problematic figure, but I think On the Marble Cliffs is well worth a look, you know, given our time, which seems to be in a similar period of perhaps slide toward authoritarianism. You know, in 1939, it was clear that that was what was going on in Germany, obviously. But you're always kind of on that cusp, right? Where I think we are standing on the marble cliffs at this time. Perhaps, perhaps not. You know, that it's uncertain at this point where we are. But if you're interested in a novel that kind of allegorically or symbolically charts that descent, that slide into the apocalypse, it's not really so much about the authoritarianism as it is that slide into the destruction, into apocalypse, into the madness of war and of the criminal elements of a society coming to the fore and taking control and starting to rule. That is more what this book is about. And if you're interested in that sort of thing, I have another video that is about Ian Banks' novel, A Song of Stone, which has a similar allegorical dimension to it that takes a microcosm of society and tracks its decline into authoritarianism, into apocalypse, into just self-destruction. Highly recommend. Beautiful novel, lushly poetic, great translation. This is the New York Review of Books edition. Great translation by Tess Lewis. Like I said, it's a little problematic just because of Junger's very right-wing past, but it is interesting to see somebody on the right, somebody within the sort of the German Nazi machine that was really at its height in 1939, certainly politically, if not quite militarily, but getting close. And to somebody within that regime to be able to sort of write a book of protest and publish it certainly takes courage. And despite the fact that he had a great deal of personal prestige, it took a risk to publish a book that was protesting what he saw as a slide into barbarism, a slide into corruption, and a slide into criminality. I think that's what makes it worth a look. Have you read On the Marble Cliffs? What did you think about it? I would love to hear. I would love to get a discussion going in the comments. If you would like to see my video discussing Ian Banks' A Song of Stone, I will have a link to that. It should be popping up in one of the corners here sometime soon, if not already. If you would like to support the channel, I will have a link to On the Marble Cliffs in the description box below, as well as links to my own books. I have a fantasy and an action adventure that I've published, and I'm working on a couple of new books that I'm wrapping up that I'm very excited about, looking forward to bringing to you real soon. I'll have more on that in the coming days. If you got some value, got some entertainment out of this, got a good book recommendation out of it, please leave a like, please subscribe. I'll be putting out similar videos in the coming days. That's all I've got for you today. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you in the next one.